Sure. So during this week, a lot of people was a lot of polarizing on Twitter about this leaked audio.
Hmm.
But surprisingly, I think it's like from what I read, it was like 70 to like 30, 70 in favor of positive reaction to it. But great actor, great movie star, great actor too, Tom
Hmm.
Cruise.
Yeah.
They leaked the audio of him on set for Mission Impossible 7, and it had to do with COVID. Later on, I realized that the issue was that they were doing camera. They were not. It was supposed to be, everything's supposed to be 6 feet apart. They were
Yeah.
doing camera tricks or whatever to make it look like it was 6 feet or something like that. And he went on what they would call a rant about him, explicit, like vulgar, like I can do an impression of it, but it's like he basically was saying that that we have a responsibility. Like I'm responsible for everyone's jobs. If we fuck this up, we screw so many people over.
Yeah.
So that made us think about Tom Cruise. So sure.
Yeah, and it actually was in the midst of like last weekend. I like started watching Jerry Maguire. I think it came on like before because the Giants game was at like 4. No, it came on after the Giants game, and like I started watching it, but then I had to do something else, and I had to turn it off. Or you know what? Yeah, it actually was before the Giants game. Like Giants was like 1 o'clock, and it came on at like 11:30. So I started watching it, but then I turned it off to watch the Giants game, and I put it to record. So I've been watching it like piece by piece because it's another one of the movies where like I didn't watch it. I can't remember watching it like all the way through. Like I remember bits and pieces of it, and like we get the name of the show from the Show Me the Money um scene. I was telling Mike that like if you don't know the movie, he's like an agent, and he kind of goes like to the sports agency world. He kind of goes rogue because he tells his firm or his agency that we perhaps shouldn't be how we perhaps shouldn't be representing like a laundry list of athletes. We need to have like personal relationships with our athletes so that way we could do our job better. And him just doing that was like, Martin Luther
Mm, mm,
posting the thing on the church doors, like, and he was basically shunned by the
yeah.
agency, and he gets fired by like his former like protege. But the only person that leaves with him was this young like secretary. So she's the only person that leaves with him. He ends up losing all of his clients except for one who is like an aging undersized wide receiver who's trying to get like the final contract of his career, and he sticks with Jerry, and they actually become friends. And the funny thing about it is like I've seen like I said, I remember bits and pieces from it, and I do recall like Cuba Gooding Jr. winning the Academy Award. And I was like, and I'm always thinking like every time I see the movie, the parts that I see, he's just doing like stereotypical like black guy stuff. But then when I watched like the whole movie um over this week, um I was like, wow, like Cuba Gooding Jr. really did like a good job in this. Like he really like earned his
Mm,
Academy Award. Like shame on me for thinking like he
yeah.
was just like pussyfooting.
They used to use the word, the J word. They just call it the jigaboo thing, the C word. Yeah, but that was one of those movies that were so like it transcended just watching the movie. Like even if like Forrest Gump, you didn't even have to see the movie Forrest Gump to know who Forrest Gump is.
Yeah,
It's like one of those movies. And
yeah, yeah.
hey, Russell, the director,
Cameron Crowe.
uh, Cameron Crowe. Yeah, I would have considered that a biopic, but like Almost Famous is like about music. That's another one where like
It
that
was
came to my
actually
mind
that
for
was
some
kind of
reason.
his
But
bio. It was kind of his biopic because he was kind of like the kid
agent.
was based on him.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Yeah, Rolling Stone. It's ironic, not ironic, but it's interesting that like in the next decade, in the 2000s, a lot of these firms broke up similarly, and they became what we call in many different industries boutique. They became boutique, so they would have only a few clients. It wouldn't be like CAA with actors, like this sports agency. It was like they had the huge offices and everything. They would have like a laundry list of different athletes and athlete clients, and then a lot of, in the next decade, a lot of it became very very personal. Like I guess they kind of bring that up in like Ballers. I don't know, so like where like it's like one guy with another guy where it's like very very connected, where it's not just like you have a list of guys who you deal with every day or women.
Yeah, because
I
if
think
you
it's
if you're just
interesting.
a name, if you're basically just like I reckon because these guys earn commission, so you think of it like being a salesperson, and these athletes are like their products. It's like you're just trying to like make money off of them. But if you have like a personal relationship with this guy, like you're gonna go hard for him, and that's why he thought like they needed to consolidate and be more personal with these guys, like know their wife, know their kids' names. And his foil in the movie was Burt Sugar, who was played by Jay Moore, and
Okay.
you kind of see like the differences between like Burt Sugar and him. And I actually had a scene where Burt Sugar and the old agency took all of Jerry's clients, and he was only left with Tidwell, who was played by Cuba Gooding Jr. And there's an end scene where Tidwell gets hit, and or he has a
Mm.
great Monday Night Football game, and post game, like he has all of these reporters around him, and like kind of like the whole point of the movie was like the subplot of the movie was like him being washed up and not reporters not wanting to talk to him and stuff like that. And the last scene was him, he didn't even answer any questions. Him and Jerry, like they hugged. And it's funny, like the way Cameron Crowe did it was if it shot back to Jay Moore's Burt Sugar with the quarterback, Tidwell's quarterback, who was his client, and his quarterback saying, "Why don't me and you have that relationship?" And Burt Sugar tries to hug him, and he's like, "Oh, don't touch me." So it kind of showed like the difference in them.
But yeah, well, like Cameron Crowe, a lot of his movies are insider shit. Like about industries,
Yeah,
which I like. So that's why I always like a lot of his stuff.
yeah, and
Um,
sort of the thing I wanted to get into is because even though it's it kind of it's like a sports movie, but at the same time it's like a romance, like a romance movie, like a romantic comedy.
mm,
So him and Renee Zellweger, who her character Dorothy, who's a single mom.
yeah.
The two of them fall in love, and me and Mike were kind of discussing like
Mm.
the scene where he shows up at her place drunk. Now, um, at this point, they weren't dating. Like she was basically just his secretary, and he shows up to her place drunk. And I'm thinking, I'm watching it, and I'm telling Mike, I'm like, yo, if this scene happened, like if this was real life, like she would be on the cover of the New York Times. I mean, she would be on the cover of the Times, in a black turtleneck with some glasses on, like obviously aged, and the title would be "I Survived, Jerry Maguire," because he shows up and he's like
Mm.
drunk and he kind of like kisses her and like he grabs her chest, and I'm just like, whoa, like you're her boss. And like it had a
Mm.
part where he says like, "I'm your boss," and she was like, "You're my boss," and she's like, "It's weird when you say it like that," or something like that.
No, no. Again, I was saying that it was like a big movie in the '90s. And like it also launched, well, kind of launched. Like the little kid in it was like a big deal too. So we had you throw the kid involved too, where she's like, she has a kid and stuff, and he's kind of like this figure. We
Yeah,
talk about sometimes like father figures and stuff. It's just like toxic, a lot of toxic masculinity popping in. Yeah, but then also, but The main thing is if you put a romantic Bruce Springsteen song over it, it's all good, you know.
Yeah.
But the Secret Garden over it, Secret Garden.
Yeah, and then her sister,
Yeah.
like some of the most interesting scenes, and it's funny to us, because it's like a bunch of like divorcees just hang out in like her sister's living room and just like are basically doing what women do on Twitter now, just be like, men are trash. They just have men are trash like deaf poetry slams in like her living room, and like she's just like
Oh yeah.
26-year-old single mom because like her first husband like tragically like died or some shit like that. They never really say how or why, but you just know he died.
Mm, yeah.
And
There's a lot
her
of scenes like that. There's like, oh, sorry. In Jungle Fever, have a scene like that too, where it's like old women trashing men.
yeah
That scene.
yeah
Yeah, that's one of the big ones. Like, how come we don't get with a bus driver or something like that? They always had those scenes in the '90s, you know, like women, you know.
yeah. And then so eventually, and that's the other thing about like that scene. It like he kind of was like it's like one of those like authority, like
Forged.
boss employee type of things, but it's kind of brushed off because like she was attracted to him. So that's one of the reasons why it's kind of like, oh, like it's hush hush, like there's no think pieces about it. But like today they would still say like, all right, you're her boss, like he still did something wrong. Which I think he did. Like I think that's, you don't show up to like your employee's house drunk,
Yeah,
and
he was having a midlife. He was having like a meltdown. Oh, what's the word again? The breakdown. He had like a breakdown,
yeah, and then she
right?
yeah, because he lost everything. He lost his job. He lost his
Yeah.
clients. He only had one client. His one client was a guy who was like over the hill. So
Mm.
you know, but they ended up getting married, or they ended up having a relationship. And the funny thing is, the first night after they have the first morning after they have sex, like they go to what was like his new office, which kind of I think was like an apartment, and he hands her like she's all like standing there, and like she's looking like, oh, are we gonna talk about what happened last night? And he hands her like a tray of like muffins and bagels and stuff, and it was like, would you? And then she's standing there like, did like last night not
Mm.
happen? So it kind of like reinforced like the boss employee shit.
Like a power thing. I bring up often like a power trip type thing.
Yeah,
No,
and
maybe not.
they end up getting married because he didn't have money, and he didn't get any new clients, and he couldn't afford to like I guess pay her salary, so she had a job offer in San Diego, and he offered to because she needed the benefits for the kid and herself. So he told her to go to San Diego. Like, I can't afford you, like I don't want to lose you, because they were boyfriend and girlfriend at this point. But when she's like ready to leave, stuff is already on the truck. He decides, he's like, all right, I can't lose her. So he says, marry me. And she was like, she told him, she was like, don't say that if you don't mean it. He was like, I mean it. Like, I can't live without you, blah, 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 blah. So she stays, they get married, and Tidwell, who's like a family guy, that's like him and Regina King, who played his wife. Like, that was kind of the thing that like they showed like their marriage, and how like they were there for each other, and they were kind of like the foil, again, another foil for Jerry and like Dorothy. Rod, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, when they were replaying the wedding on video, he notices like Jerry's face, like he could see it on his face, like Jerry's like, I don't know if I should have did this, like I'm unsure, I don't know if I want to get married, blah 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 blah. He starts going on the road with Rod, and Rod even says to him, he's like, yo, all this like stuff you're saying to me, you could have said over the phone. Why are you not home with your wife? And he starts to kind of resent the fact that he's married, and then she kind of comes to him, and she's like, listen, like I understand, like I got this kid that I got to worry about, and if you don't want to be married to me, it's not fair to him, blah 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 blah. And then he flies to the game in Arizona with Rod to watch him, and then Rod gets hurt, and he calls his wife, and his wife is like in a panic, like not because like, oh my god, like my husband is like my cash cow. She genuinely was like afraid for his life. She was like, oh my god, my husband, like that's the love of my life, he's hurt, blah 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 blah. And it kind of like pops into Jerry's mind that like, I can't live without Dorothy the same way that Marcy can't live without Rod. So he flies back, goes to her sister's house where she, I guess, moved back in, and he's like, they do the whole "you complete me, you have me at hello," blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and like,
Mhm.
I tweeted out last night after I watched the movie. They made up, obviously. And after the movie, I tweeted out, I was like, I'm no relationship expert, but I'm pretty sure if there was a Jerry Maguire 2, like it would start off with the fact that him and Dorothy like divorced not too long after.
Yeah.
Because they didn't
Mhm.
like nothing was resolved. Like that's the one thing I got from the movie.
Mhm.
I was like, he like there's nothing, like nothing got resolved. Like it's still, they're still in the same place. Like as far as I'm concerned, it was just like interesting. Like
Well,
like this romantic movie.
back when I was a kid, I remember all these like again, you complete me, like you have me at hello. That was like things that they would say on like parody versions of it. I would see all the time. I watched it like in the 2000s. I just watched. I remember, I just watched it, and then when I watched it more recently, um, their relationship is like strictly, for lack of a better word, like passion or impulse.
Yeah,
That's a good word,
yeah,
impulse. And Regina King and Cuba Gooding Jr. is more like based in unconditional, just like love. You know,
yeah,
there was based on an impulse. What is the impulse that Tom Cruise's character does? He fucking leaves,
yeah.
goes in front of a whole office, and he's like, "Who's coming with me?" It was just like pure adrenaline, just pure. And she got excited and like left with him. It was like pure, like it's like, oh well, all right, fine. If we want to talk about film, The Graduate,
Yeah.
they leave the wedding, run on the bus, and they just sit on the bus and they have nothing to talk about
Yeah,
because
and they
like it
have
was
that
just the
look on.
excitement of it.
They have that look on their face, like what
Yeah.
now? I mean, and it's funny that same
And what
scene,
now?
like
Yeah.
though the reason for it, I'm like having that what now face is because they didn't, like the camera was supposed to stop rolling, so like the actual, Dustin Hoffman
Yeah.
and the girl, they really were like, all
Mm.
right, like I don't know what to do, like what are we supposed to do?
Oh, credit roll. There's another thing, one last thing I was gonna say about yeah, so like if like they made part two, it'd be like he would still see the kid though sometimes, and it would be like that type. It'd be like 2004, like 6 years later. It was 97 to like 2002, 2003, and he works for like a sports website or something like that.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
freelance guy. Who knows? Maybe they should have made a fan fiction of it, and then the fan fiction would get published, and
what?
then that would become a new movie and make like $1 billion. Oh wait, this is what I got. Sorry, real quick. So that side of the storyline with Jerry Maguire and Renee Zellweger, the character Dorothy, it reminded me of like a Woody Allen arc,
Hmm.
also, where like a lot of his stuff was, it was like the male centric,
Yeah,
where he was like, and Woody Allen always was like the guy in charge. He obviously always go with the younger, more vulnerable woman in all his work in like the 70s and stuff.
yeah,
And he was always from like the industry, like he worked in TV and stuff, and that maybe Cameron Crowe grew up on that stuff too, so like he kind of like was influenced by it. But that reminded me of that. But the thing with that whole like impulse relationship, those ones usually don't last. They fizzle. Is fizzle when it ends real quick?
yeah.
Fizzle. Yeah. So
Fizzles,
like
yeah, fizzled
yeah.
out.
So it fizzles and it's all. Then you have to keep trying to make more and more. Um, like maybe you break up and then like a week later, like you show up again, at their place of work or whatever, and then like they get you excited again for a little bit, but then like it's not like based on a pure solid foundation, which is great. I never really thought about it with the other side. The other relationship was like built on. I guess they were probably together before you even went to college, maybe or something like that. Like where like before he
Yeah,
even became a pro and all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So breaking news. the reason why Tom Cruise was yelling at the crew on the set of Mission Impossible 7 is because, they delayed Top Gun 2. So he couldn't stand for another movie to get delayed. But also he has something down the can. And I've talked to Cameron Crowe and I've talked to Tom Cruise. So breaking news on Suge Me the Mooney. I am working on Jerry Maguire 2. I'm going to be the writer and the director and the producer. Everybody's coming back. But it's going to be based off my fan fiction.
Yeah, and it's Jerry Maguire, 2. So like it's like a thruples now. Like it's a thruples relationship now.
Yeah, it's gonna be...
he's still around. Jerry Maguire 2.
It's gonna be another Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.